I was Hanny, your boy Rico from StreetScores. We have a lot to cover today in this video right here. Of course, I will be with the Commanders Kings. All four of us will be live streaming tonight for rounds 2 and 3. Hopefully, we end up with a third round pick. We don't have one right now. But either way, this video, we have like 2 major topics to break down. First of all, I want to look at all of the best players available for Washington tonight. I even have some comps for some of them, and I also, for every single one of them, the round where I feel like we could potentially get them. And I'm definitely looking at Nick Scourton, because he may be the next Jared Verse. Big sleeper in this draft. And also another half of this video, but we're kind of gonna like flip-flop back and forth a little bit, is Adam Peters and Josh Conerly spoke to the media after the Josh Conerly pick. Adam Peters loves this guy, but nobody loves him more than Cliff Kingsbury. We're gonna dive into why and how and all of that type of stuff. And then also we got to do some breakdowns of not only what Josh Conerly said, but now even after the pick, after I already did my breakdown yesterday, if you haven't seen it yet, of his strengths, weaknesses, comp, and everything like that. I even have some more notes that I want to dive into, some interesting stats, and also some really creative ways that Cliff Kingsbury is going to utilize him in the offense. The Eagles have their own tush push. How about us getting a Josh Conerly special play? Watch out for that. We're going to dive into all of them more, but before we do, make sure you still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for supporting the videos. Shouts out to all of y'all that pulled up and watched the draft with me and Shay last night, man. That was incredible. Shouts out to all of y'all that left likes, donated, everybody in the chat. That was amazing. It was beautiful. So much fun. And again, make sure y'all pull up to the Commanders Kings tonight. And then I will be live streaming back on my own channel on Saturday for rounds 4 through 7. We'll see, man. Appreciate all of y'all. Let's go and dive into the video right now, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so first of all, shouts out to the Washington Commanders for letting us get behind the scenes on this one, because Adam Peters, after he took Josh Conerly, he brought out the fact that Cliff Kingsbury left a sheet of paper on his desk. I think he said it was like a week ago. Please draft offensive tackle Josh Conerly. Thank you. Signed, Cliff Kingsbury. He left a note on AP's desk like a week ago saying that. And I know Cliff Kingsbury is doing backflips about getting Josh Conerly. Us drafting Josh Conerly, Cliff Kingsbury may be so happy about that he may stay another year. Like, I got a coach, I got Jada Daniels and Josh Conerly. Y'all traded for Laramie Tunsil. Y'all went and got Debo Samuel, and I already have Terry. And who knows what we do with the rest of this draft. He's probably like, man, I might have to stick around even longer, man. So far it looks like Cliff Kingsbury, this probably will be his final year. He may leave for a head coaching job because he'll be the hottest name on the market this upcoming offseason. Ben Johnson stole a lot of the limelight from him last year, even though there was a lot of interest out there for Cliff Kingsbury. But he'll be like the belle of the dance next year. All eyes on Cliff Kingsbury, so it's likely that he leaves. But now that, Adam Peters probably went and got his boy. So, hey, you may want to stick around a little bit longer. We got multiple of your boys. You wanted Jaden, you wanted Josh Conerly. I'm pretty sure he wanted Laramie Tunsil. And so, hey, man, Cliff Kingsbury is looking great around here. You may want to stick around forever. You know what I'm saying? Maybe just a permanent offensive coordinator for the Commanders. But also in that clip, if you go check out the clip for yourself on the Washington Commanders website, I don't want to show it and like steal their content. I don't know how YouTube feels about that, so I'm scared to show it. But either way, if you see in that clip, you look, that's definitely an updated and upgraded draft war room right there in that video. They said that the new one wouldn't be ready until the 2026 draft, I thought, but that video definitely looked like a far better war room than we saw last year in clips and videos. So either that's the upgraded one already, or they just maybe did slight improvements to the old one and they're going to showcase an even better one later. I don't know, but either way, that looks way better than anything we saw last year from our clips of looking at all of behind the scenes stuff for the draft. And then also, Adam Peters did say that they had a ton of calls while they were there on the clock and moving back. They weren't even potentially going to even have to go back that far, but they just did not want to risk missing out on Josh Conerly that much. He was literally their best player on the board. We're going to dive into a lot of the quotes that Adam Peters had about Josh Conerly. We're going to dive into what all of them mean, because some of them are really interesting. I'm not just reading these for no reason. There's some really interesting, like, reading between the lines things here that we're going to dive into, really like analyze this and all of that type of stuff. But I thought that was really interesting that Adam Peters is claiming that there were teams that were trying to trade up. And there were reports and rumors that we wanted to trade back in this draft. And then the fact that not only were there trade back options for us, apparently they weren't even very far. And he still said no because they wanted Josh Conerly that bad. So again, Adam Peters loves Josh Conerly. I just don't think anybody loves him more than Cliff Kingsbury, and any more than Jaden Daniels will love him once they finally get on the field together, man. And again, he said this was an easy pick for the whole building. We were thrilled that he was there. He also said this pick was a no-brainer, but there were nerves about other teams snagging him. And later that Conley, he also added that he may potentially play guard or tackle. We'll dive into that later. But he called Josh Conerly the total package. He said that they fell more in love with Conerly the more they got to know him. Said it was really the total package that stood out about Conerly both on and off the field. He said, quote, this was a pick from the entire building, unquote. Peter said their West Coast scouts stood on the table early for him, quote, everybody was really pumped. It was an easy pick to make, unquote. He also said that he's fired up to, quote, add another commander, unquote, man. And then he also emphasized Josh Conerly's, quote, great feet, bend, and great lower body structure, unquote. Peters also said Conerly's maturity really stood out. He's young, but already has a professional approach, even though he does have a baby face, I ain't gonna lie. He also said that Conerly was routine oriented and had really good feet, and again, that it was an easy pick at 29. Peters also talked about competition when asked about Conerly's role. He said he could play both guard and tackle. Peters said the only guarantee is that Laramie Tunsil will be at left tackle again. We'll address that a little later. He said LT is going to be the LT, and Peters, of course, wouldn't commit to playing Conerly at right tackle or guard, just simply that Laramie Tunsil will start at left tackle. That's all he's given us. Again, we're going to dive into that really soon, but before we get there, again, talking about not trading back, he said Conerly was a guy that they loved, so the pick was easy. Peters said they got a ton of calls, but if he was on the board, they weren't going to trade back. It was not worth risking missing on him. They discussed that if Conerly was still on the board, they were not going to trade back. The offers weren't far back, but they just didn't feel like it was worth it, like we talked about earlier. And he even said, quote, he was the highest player on our board, unquote, out of all of the guys that were available at that point. They weren't going to risk it. Also, Adam Peters said, looking at the entire Washington offseason moves with Debo, Tunsil, and now Conerly, they're trying to build around Jaden Daniels. They said, quote, every move we make, we're trying to maximize him, unquote, as in Jaden Daniels. And then Adam Peters was even asked about not taking a defensive player, which a lot of us assumed it would be edge rusher, corner, or something like that. He said there's no pressure to take a defensive player going forward in the draft. The Commanders will stick to their board. And then AP then jokes that he feels bad for Joe Witt Jr., which I thought was pretty funny. And then also playing against Abdul Carter. Peter said that Conerly went toe-to-toe with Abdul Carter, which stands out a lot, and I feel like that's the game that got him drafted by the Commanders. I'm pretty sure they loved a lot of his traits, but if you go look at that Penn State game, which I literally showed you him literally blocking Abdul Carter with my video that I put out last night. So again, if you haven't seen that, go check it out, because I'm literally talking about it while you're seeing him literally shut down the 3rd overall pick in the draft. Like I said in that video last night, the Giants went Abdul Carter in the third overall in the first round. How about we get the tackle that literally erased him from a game? 0 pressure, 0 sacks, 0 quarterback, his nothing. His arguably worst game at his entire career at Penn State, at least this past season as an edge rusher. And we went and canceled out the Giants' 3rd overall pick with our 29th overall pick. Insane stuff, man. I just don't see how anybody can necessarily hate this pick. And then going back to the whole, is he a guard or a tackle? Mind you, like I just emphasized earlier, this was kind of like a clue. I was foreshadowing this. The Cliff Kingsbury note that he left on Adam Peters' desk, he said, I stopped by. Please take Oregon tackle Josh Conerly. Thanks, Cliff Kingsbury. Emphasized tackle. So Cliff Kingsbury already knows that he's a right tackle, and it makes too much sense. Josh Conerly's just starting right tackle. Laramie Tunsil's just starting left tackle. Brandon Coleman is a Pro Bowl potential starting left guard. You have Tyler Biadasz, a top 5, top 7 center. You have Samuel Cosmi, who's literally a Pro Bowl guard. He's literally already made it to the Pro Bowl, and I believe he'll play especially without Andrew Wiley to his right. I think Samuel Cosmi will even play better. And then Josh Conerly for sure has Pro Bowl, maybe even all-pro potential at right tackle, because I thought he had Pro Bowl potential at left tackle. And then also, man, shouts out to Josh Conerly too, because I love how he and his family celebrated after he got drafted. I mean, it was like 30 deep in that house, and they were so happy. He was so happy. And we're going to dive into what he had to say after the draft, because he's clearly excited about the fact that not only he made it to the NFL, but the fact that the Commanders specifically got him. And like I talked about in my video last night, what's a better environment for a guy like him, especially with his specific skill set of being freakishly athletic and extremely mobile, especially for a guy his size, elite footwork, the ability to get to the second level and block linebackers and DBs, than the Commanders. Cliff Kingsbury is one of the smartest minds in all of football right now, especially on the offensive side of the football. And we saw the difference between Andrew Wiley with Eric Bieniemy as your offensive coordinator and Cliff Kingsbury as your offensive coordinator, right? Like it was night and day, right? Now imagine what Cliff Kingsbury is going to do with a freak athlete like Josh Conerly with Pro Bowl, All-Pro level potential, man. So I can see why Josh Conerly is excited about potentially joining the Commanders, because even on top of Cliff Kingsbury, how about the offensive linemen around him? You know, at Oregon, you know, he was like the guy. Like he was the best offensive lineman, I would easily say, on their O-line. And now he's coming here, and you have a Pro Bowler in Samuel Cosme to your left, and then just a bunch of Pro Bowlers all the way down. Again, I think Brandon Coleman has Pro Bowl left guard potential. So and then Jaden Daniels is your quarterback, a top 5 quarterback, not only a top 5 elite quarterback, but also one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the NFL, who also gets the ball out of his hands quickly. So you don't even have to block as long as you normally do. And then even if for the slim chance that you may mess up, just granted, this guy only allowed 1 sack all last season, mind you, and only 1 sack the year before that in 2023 as well. In 2 years of blocking, he's only allowed 2 total sacks. But even if you do mess up, Jaden Daniels is going to make you right, because, again, he's an elite mobile quarterback. Then, of course, Josh Conerly was really excited, man. He talked about being drafted by Washington. He was excited about blocking for Jaden Daniels. He said it means the world to me. He talks about the impressions that he had of the Commanders. He said very high energy. And, of course, he talked about what he could bring to the team. He said and he was even asked, was he expecting it? He said, quote, "Yeah, I was ready to go," unquote. He was super excited, I guess, from the talks and all of the times that he visited. He had a top 30 visit with us. We talked to him at the Combine, Senior Bowl, everywhere that we could. His pro day, we had like 4 or 5 major points of contact with this guy. So he probably already had a feeling that, hey, if I fall to 29, the Commanders are definitely going to take me. And again, he's very excited about it. He said that it means the world to block for Jaden Daniels. Looking forward to the opportunity to, quote, block for one of the best, unquote. That's what people are saying about a burgundy and gold quarterback after his rookie season. Josh Conerly also said, quote, "It means the world to me. Heisman Trophy winner, somebody I look up to, just somebody that went from the Pac-12 to the SEC, did big things, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to just get out there and block for one of the best," unquote. And Conerly said that he hasn't necessarily heard about his role, but he's ready to do whatever he's asked to, including playing on the right side, which is interesting too, because he has been literally a left tackle the 2 years that he started at Oregon. So that's going to be a slight adjustment going to right tackle, but Laramie Tunsil's already a certified All-Pro level left tackle. Now Josh Conerly is going to take his Pro Bowl level services to the right side. And again, he's a 2-year starter at left tackle. He said he's ready to switch sides if that's the plan, and you already know that it is. I think he's far more likely to be a starting right tackle than a starting left guard. That's a waste of his freakish athleticism and mobility, man. You're playing him at right tackle. Brandon Coleman will play at left guard. He was also asked what he brings to the team. He said, quote, I'm an unbelievable person, great teammate for anything, and an amazing player on the field. Someone that's going to make sure their quarterback stays upright and open up lanes for anybody else," unquote. Again, like I mentioned in my video last night and like I mentioned weeks ago, imagine Josh Conerly out on the perimeter, Jaden Daniels speed option, Josh Conerly instead of Andrew Wiley out in space blocking for him, going after linebackers and DBs. You know how many more yards Jaden Daniels is going to be able to run untouched because you have Josh Conerly as your right tackle now? Also, talking about pre-draft meetings, Conerly said that he met with the Commanders at the Combine and then again on a top 30 visit. I already mentioned that he talked to them even more times than that. He said it's a great place to be. He also said, quote, "It was high emotions in my draft room and theirs," unquote. So he feels the love from the Commanders as well. And then he also said what stood out on his visit with Washington, quote, "The energy in the building. You could tell they were really building something," unquote. So we're excited. He's excited. And Get shouts out to Linnell Willingham because he brings up a good point. With Washington passing on edge in round 1, I continue to feel like their love for the other tier edge rushers like Jackson, Jack Sawyer, JTT, Oladejo, Q Robinson, David Walker, that they're probably leaning towards that. And shouts out to Mark Tyler because he said, I agree on this. Edge was much deeper in round 2 than offensive tackle and corner. So it makes sense to go offensive tackle in the first round because there's still some really good edge rushers available right now, which now takes me to my top available players. As you can see on the screen right now, is my personal top available players right now in the 2025 NFL Draft, especially when we're talking about tonight, day 2, rounds 2 and 3. I'm definitely in this. There's like tiers, so that's why I have them separated like that. And I tried my best to put them in order, but literally looking right now, I kind of want to move some guys above other guys. So don't take it very literal, like person by person wise, but these are definitely my tiers. The tiers are, take that exactly how it looks with the separation between the groups of them. But like going from Mike Green to Donovan Ezraku, Nick Scourton, don't read into that too much because I've been all over I've been flip flopping back and forth. Literally up to the point that I recorded this, I moved like 5 or 6 people and changed them around. So just pay more so attention to the groups that they're in and the tiers that they're in. So of course I have Mike Green, second round. Obviously I don't think he's making it out of the second round even with the off the field concerns, but a lot of us thought that he wouldn't make it out of the first round. Then edge Donovan Ezraku, second round. I think he has a Von Miller ceiling. And even just to go back to Mike Green, I don't exactly know what to comp him to. I just think he's a guaranteed double-digit sack guy every year type of guy. So whatever that comp you want to give him, elite player. If we somehow come away with him, even if we trade up in the second round to get him, he falls to 61 somehow, I'm taking him. And then Nick Scourton, we're gonna dive into him with some, extensively a little bit in this video, more than any other guy that we're looking at on this big board right now, because I think right now he makes the most sense for us. Donovan Ezraku would love him. Dream case scenario, I would have taken him at 29. I just don't think he'll be there at 61. I think Nick Scourton actually is like the best combination of quite likely to be there at 61 and also a best case scenario for us right there. Of course, running back Travion Henderson out of Ohio State, he's literally a no fumbling Jamal Charles, literally. Again, Nick Scourton, I think he's Jared Verse, as you can see on the screen right now. But if you want him to lose more weight and get back to his produce size to be a more efficient pass rusher, more explosive and quick pass rusher, then maybe his comp wouldn't be Jared Verse. But as of right now, what we saw from Texas A&M, Jared Verse. He loses that weight, he's probably more of like a situational pass rusher type of guy, but I also think he's a guaranteed double-digit sack guy every year, especially with Dan Quinn as his defensive-minded head coach and Joe Wood Jr. as his defensive coordinator. And then again, I love Travion Henderson. He's my favorite running back available right now, and I'm not going to say it's not necessarily not close, but as you can see from the tiers, like I like Travion Henderson, especially with the fit that he has for this team, more than any other running back available. Then Will Johnson, I mean, you could just argue he's best player available right now, but people are really worried about his knee injury. They feel like it's going to be something chronic that he's going to have to deal with his entire career. It's not something he could just heal from. It's something that's always going to be a problem. And then Trey Harris, my favorite personal wide receiver in this draft class. Like if we're talking about the guy that I bet's gonna have the highest ceiling, that has all Pro Bowl potential, Trey Harris is my guy. I would love to get him if he somehow makes it to 61. And then Luther Burden, I like him as well. I love his ceiling. Then of course you have Nick Amawari, like his ceiling. Don't love his tape, but I love his ceiling. Benjamin Morrison, love him. If it weren't for the injury, I think he's a guaranteed first round pick. That could be a steal right there. Wide receiver Jaden Higgins, another very high ceiling wide receiver. Love him. Kyle Williams, really like him. May not like him as much as Chris Sims, who had him as like his second ranked receiver, I think, or something like that. But I really like Kyle Williams. I would love to get him. Siobhan Revel, extremely talented, just played at lower competition and had an injury, but arguably a first round talent. I would say a top 10, top 15, at worst top 20 talent in this draft. One of the best corners talent wise. Darian Porter, elite ceiling, didn't play a lot of games, but elite ceiling. You're going straight off of traits. He's like 6'3", one of the longest corners in this entire draft, and then ran a ridiculous 40 time of like a 4.3 something. Insane ball of clay to mold into an elite starting corner. The running back DJ Giddens, arguably the highest ceiling left out of all of the running backs in this draft class, man. Insane stuff. I would love to take him. The vision, I mean, he just hasn't played running back long. He's pretty raw, but that's a ball of clay. Hey, man, I wouldn't be surprised we look back 3-4 years from now and DJ Giddens is one of the best running backs in this class. Caleb Johnson, arguably the best vision in this entire class, and I mean, I know a lot of people don't necessarily love him because he's not super fast, but he's faster than anything we have. He's faster than Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. I don't think he could take 80 yards to the house for a touchdown, but I think he could take a 50-yarder to the house and not get caught from behind. He's faster than anything we have in the running back room right now. And again, arguably the best vision. Between him and Genty, and I probably lean towards Caleb Johnson when it comes to the vision. So he would definitely give us an upgrade. And Quinton Junkins, I mean, very talented running back right there. Again, another Brian Robinson type, but just a better version of Brian Robinson, I would argue. I can see that there. Harold Fannin Jr., I think he's extremely underrated at tight end. Even at Bowling Green, when he played against high-level competition, Penn State, and I believe Texas A&M was the other one, still balled out, unguardable, even though he was the entire offense. Bad quarterback, no other receivers to distract the defense. Defenses literally knew Harold Fanning was the only way that Bowling Green could ever move the ball and score points, and they still couldn't stop him. So I would take my chance on him there. Wide receiver Jalen Noel, especially as like a slot receiver deep threat, I think that would be a good match. Edge rusher Oluwafemi Oladejo makes a lot of sense. And even linebacker Carson Swessinger with the elite ceiling, the crazy relative athletic score that he put up, like a 9.4 or 6 or something like that. Insane ceiling there. Then we move on to the next tier. Of course, I have Ty Felton from Maryland. I think we can possibly get him in the 4th round. Then you have Terrence Ferguson, who I feel like a lot of people are sleeping on, that you'll have to take him in the 2nd round. I just don't love him that much. And then Braden Swinson. I think you could probably get him in the 4th round if you don't take edge rusher here in the 2nd. And just to let you know, he had the 2nd highest percentage of pass rushes with a pressure last season, only behind James Pierce. So if you're talking about a situational pass rusher with some serious ceiling, Braden Swinson may be a guy. If you don't go edge rusher in the 2nd or 3rd, we don't have a 3rd round pick right now. Immediately 4th round, Braden Swinson is my favorite best case scenario option. And then Bashal Tootin, one of the highest ceiling running backs in this draft class. But the only reason he's going to be available 4th is because he has, between him and Dylan Sampson, have the worst fumble problems of this entire draft class. And that's enough to take him off of a lot of people's boards. So that's just a quick little synopsis of like my top personal big board and top guys available by tier and things like that. Of course, I'm missing some guys like Trey Amos and Zaire Thomas, but I don't necessarily love those guys that much. But, you know, we'll see. Now, moving on. Shouts out to Matt Miller of ESPN, because right now he's predicting that the Commanders will end up drafting edge rusher Nick Scourton at 61. He said, quote, in round 2, he could snag the pass rusher coach Dan Quinn needs with the high upside of Scourton, who had 10 sacks in 2023 at Purdue, but saw his impact from production wane at Texas A&M last season. And even John Com, right before the draft, yesterday at like 12:30 p.m., he said, a name I haven't mentioned enough during the draft process is defensive end Nick Scourton, because apparently the Commanders like him more than a lot of reporters have said. Ben Standing has name dropped Nick Scourton a few times. Maybe there's something there. Maybe they like him enough to where they may even trade up for him type of situation and don't even risk waiting until pick 61. Now, going back to Nick Scourton, I blame Texas A&M way more than I blame Scourton. Scourton does have his fair share of problems and weaknesses. There's a reason he's still here, available in the 2nd round. But I blame Texas A&M way more for their scheme. I mean, look at Walter Nolan wasting his first couple of years there, goes to Ole Miss and finally looks like the top 5 recruit he was coming out of high school. Shamar Stewart, freak athlete. Myles Garrett, body and athleticism, but wasn't productive at all. And I blame Shamar Stewart for a lot of that, but I blame Texas A&M more for that as well. And then Nick Scourton, he had 10 sacks and like 15 tackles for losses before he went to Texas A&M when he was at Purdue. And that was against high-level competition. It wasn't the SEC, but it was still the Big Ten. And then he went to Texas A&M and fell flat on his face. And you could argue that Scourton is a first-round talent, but has only fallen because people may overreact to his 2024 season at that dreaded Texas A&M and their stupid system that they were running for their defensive linemen. They had him gain weight and stop the run and hold the point of attack rather than go after the quarterback. Like, why? The reason you wanted him in the transfer portal was because he had 10 sacks last year, and y'all were like, okay, that's cool, 10 sacks last year, pull up, but when you come here, I want you to gain weight and don't ever try to go after the quarterback on a consistent basis. Like, come on, man. So Nick Scourton, lose that weight, go back to your Purdue weight, and ball out and be a perpetual double-digit sack guy for the Commanders, man. Shouts out to the draft room, because I agree. He has like a highlight clip on Twitter that he uploaded earlier today at 1 p.m. He said the prospect I'm most surprised fell to the 2nd round out of this entire draft is Nick Scourton. Big, twitchy, and explosive. Heavy and efficient hands. Plays tough versus the run. Freaky change of direction. 10 sacks. 15 tackles for losses just a year ago, and no recency bias, but he reminds me of Jared Verse. Again, I feel like personally, if you're talking about Jared Verse, that's because you have him playing at the weight that he was forced to gain by Texas A&M. But if he goes back to his Purdue weight, I don't know. You could argue he's probably Donovan Ezeraku, literally. But you know, just like a quick summary real quick from Draft Buzz, I agree with a lot of the things that they said. They said Scourton's blend of size, explosiveness, and technical refinement projects him as an immediate contributor in a 4-3 defensive front where his natural power and advanced rush setup can be maximized from a three-point stance. His proven production against top competition in both the Big Ten and SEC demonstrates the ability to win both finesse and power at the next level. The vast majority of his impact early will come as a designated pass rusher where his spin move and ability to convert speed to power give him legitimate third down value from day one, week one. As he develops his counter moves and builds up his stamina, his role should expand into an every down edge setter who can consistently pressure quarterbacks while holding the point of the run, against the run. And then his immediate ceiling may be capped by his current limitations against double teams and a need for a counter move development, which Donovan Ezeraku does have. But Nick Scourton's foundation suggests Pro Bowl potential by year 3, and I agree. I think he probably even get there sooner just because of the system that we run Dan Quinn as your defensive coordinator. I think he could. I'm not saying he's going to be Micah Parsons, but I can see him having insane production just because his athleticism, his traits that he showed, especially back at Purdue, and Dan Quinn and Joe Jr. is your defensive coaching staff. They're going to get the most out of him. Also, I want to point out the fact that the youngest rookies available in this entire draft class by age is Dylan Sampson at 20.61, and then second is Nick Scourton at 20.66. Then you got LaQuint Allen, then Harold Fannin, then my Georgia dog Trevor Etienne, then Azareye'h Thomas, then Jordan Phillips, then Georgia dog Michael Williams, then Shamar James, and then Mason Taylor. Those are literally the youngest players in this entire draft class. Nick Scourton is again the second youngest player out of the entire draft class. So we're talking about ceiling. This guy probably hasn't even gotten close to scratching his surface. He's one of those guys where you could argue maybe if he just stayed for another year, maybe transfer it to a defense that learned how to use him a little bit better than Texas A&M. He's probably a top 10, top 15 pick next class. It's insane. So this could be insane value in the second round where this guy had no business falling this far. But with all of the interest that the Commanders have shown Oluwafemi Oladejo, and the fact that he's far more likely to be available with the 61st overall pick, just a heads up, don't be surprised if he's the pick. But I think Nick Scourton right now, outside of Mike Green and Donovan Ezeraku, who I don't feel like are realistic options to fall at 61, I think Nick Scourton is our best case scenario that's realistic. Now going back to Josh Conerly. Shouts out to George Carmi for pointing out the fact that the Commanders' offensive linemen that have been drafted in the first round going all the way back to 2000, you have to go back to Brandon Sheriff 2015, Trip Williams 2010, and Chris Samuels literally flat 2000. Now you have Josh Conerly in 2025. So there are big expectations for this guy because every single one of those guys I just named, Brandon Sheriff, Trent Williams, and Chris Samuels, were absolute dogs. And worthy of the Hogs, nickname that we try to give guys even beyond us winning Super Bowls in the 80s and early 90s. I think Josh Conerly will be somebody that this fan base grows to absolutely love. And just to point it out, Chris Samuels had 6 Pro Bowls. He deserved more. Trent Williams had 11 Pro Bowls. Brandon Sheriff had 5. I can't wait to count up how many Josh Conerly gets because I think he'll have some. And I also do want to point out the fact that 2 years ago, we had Charles Leno as your starting left tackle. Sadiq Charles is your starting left guard. Nick Gates is your starting center. Samuel Cosmi is your starting right guard, and Andrew Wiley is your starting right tackle. Just to let you know, out of everybody I just named there, Samuel Cosmi is the only remaining starter, and he's a Pro Bowler. Andrew Wiley's now on the bench, and then the other 3 guys are gone with good reason. That's how much we've just upgraded this offensive line in a matter of a year and a half. And then also, shouts out to Ryan Fowler for pointing out the fact that, this guy has elite ability to get out of his stance and explode as a puller in space. This guy can easily pull, man. He had the fastest 10-yard split, 1.71 out of any offensive lineman in the class, out of the whole entire combine. Tackles, guards, centers, whoever. Insane stuff, man. And also, shouts out to Nick Baumgartner, because he said, quote, "That's great value where they got Josh Conerly. He's a really good football player with a future ahead of him. There's still some rawness to his game, but there might not be a better athlete at tackle in the entire draft class than Conerly." I would dare to agree. And then also a lot of people are bringing up that, you know, the Mike Green rep he had at the Senior Bowl where Mike Green ran right through him. But nobody ever points out the second matchup that he had with him right afterwards. He dominated Mike Green. He got beat the first time, got caught off guard, and then right after that, he made Mike Green look like a 7th round pick. But they don't want to talk about that. That's not the fun narrative for the Mike Green guy that was supposed to go higher in the draft than Josh Conerly. Now Josh Conerly went before him. Also, I do want to point out the fact that Josh Conerly, freakish athleticism, remember, in high school, running back, tight end, I think even like DB or something like that, but he played a lot of running back. And Oregon even threw him a touchdown pass against Colorado. You know how creative Cliff Kingsbury is going to get with this guy? Also, how about a direct snap? How about Wildcat with Josh Conerly as the receiver of the ball in goal line, running over two, what is that, Texas? Who is that? Louisville, Texas? That's some college team that they're going against, and he ran over 2 guys to get into the end zone off the direct snap. You know what I'm saying? So I know Cliff Kingsbury is excited. And yeah, the Eagles have the tush push, but how about shouts out to Chick Hernandez for coining the phrase, the Josh Jam. You know what I'm saying? Wildcat, you got Josh Conerly. He could just take the direct snap and run over 3 people to get into the end zone. Or, I mean, especially, you know, when Brian Robinson's failing to get in or whatever running backs we have. And then again, Cliff Kingsbury can even get as creative as Ben Johnson and throw passes to his tackle. He did it with Trent Scott last year, and Josh Conerly is a way better potential receiver than Trent Scott was. He's more athletic. He has better hands. He literally played running back and tight end in high school. He's ready. And then also, shouts out to Dre for pointing out the fact that Cliff really wanted Conerly. I imagine he has some plays that he hasn't even called yet because he didn't have the personnel on the offensive line to do so last year, and he's going to have that now this year. And I agree. MV Scouting on Twitter agrees, and I agree with him. He said, I anticipate the tackles to be running out in front of Debo very often. So this is going to maximize Debo. This is going to maximize Jaden Daniels. This is going to maximize our running backs. Josh Conerly, this pick makes everybody better. It makes Samuel Cosme better to the left of him. It makes our entire offensive line better because now Brandon Coleman has Pro Bowl potential at left guard rather than Nick Allegretti's cool. He's solid, but now he's your backup guard because you took Josh Conerly at right tackle. He makes Jaden Daniels better. He's going to make the running game better. It's insane. And then just to let you know, Josh Conerly only allowed 2 sacks these past 2 years with 1,007 passing reps at Oregon. Granted, going against high-level competition. You know what I'm saying? Maybe in 2023, you could argue it wasn't high-level competition, but he went against guys like Abdul Carter. He was in the Big Ten with Michigan and Ohio State, Penn State, again, Abdul Carter and those guys. So he played against high-level of competition for sure in 2024. And mind you, when going up against Abdul Carter, 3rd overall pick, 35 pass blocking snaps, 0 pressures allowed, no sacks, no nothing. Arguably, Abdul Carter's worst game as an edge rusher came against Josh Conerly Jr. We have the 3rd overall pick eraser. We have to go against Abdul Carter 2 times a year. Why not get the guy that literally did the best job against Abdul Carter than anybody has since he's fully converted to edge rusher, man? It just makes too much sense. And shouts out to Grant Paulson. He brings up a good point. He said, let's look at what Adam Peters has done this offseason from a macro perspective. 1 year ago, after finding his franchise quarterback, Peters went out and got a potential standout bookend starting offensive tackles to protect Jaden Daniels for years to come. Be upset at that. I dare you. Laramie Tunsil and Josh Conerly, elite moves, man. Also, granted, the Commanders did not necessarily address their biggest need in the first round. They didn't even arguably address a top 5 need, but they added a starter, Pro Bowl starter in my opinion, at a critical position, further committed to protecting and elevating your franchise quarterback, the most important asset on the entire team, Jaden Daniels, and that should always be a priority. It's hard to do wrong with that. I agree. And then shouts out to MV Scouting again. He said, what's the single most important part of any success the team has had over the next decade, right? That will happen over the next decade. Jaden Daniels. What's the surefire, easiest way to keep him comfortable and operating on time and in rhythm? Offensive line. You cannot be mad at this. Shouts out to Mark Bullock. He brings up the fact that Tunsil, Coleman, Biotish, Cosme, and Conerly, that's a strong offensive line foundation to build around Jaden Daniels and protect the Commanders' most important asset. Super athletic across the board. I think we have top 5 offensive line. I would put our name in there as arguably the #1 most athletic offensive line in the entire NFL. Lots of versatility as well. I mean, because you could argue Conerly can play right tackle, left tackle, or even guard. Laremy Tunsil's pure tackle, but Nick Allegretti can play anywhere in the interior offensive line. Left guard, center, right guard. Brandon Coleman, left tackle, left guard, right guard. Andrew Wiley, right tackle, right guard, left guard. Nate Herbig, he was supposed to be the starting center for the Steelers last year before he got hurt before the season started and missed the entire season. Now he's like our backup interior offensive lineman. He was supposed to be the Steelers starting center. Now he's our backup center. You know what I'm saying? It's insane, the level of versatility, the ceiling that, and even the floor that we have in this group right now. Nice, and also it's a bunch of youth and experience all mixed in together, so we can win now and win for the future. So Jaden Daniels, I know if anybody's excited, he's happy, and if Jaden Daniels is happy, y'all should be excited. Also, shouts out to Daniel Jeremiah for pointing this out. Notable 2025 additions: teams that selected first-round quarterback in the 2024 draft. The Bears went and got Joe Thuney and Drew Dahlman, and then drafted Colson Loveland, the tight end. The Patriots went and got Stephon Diggs and tackle Morgan Moses and drafted Will Campbell 4th overall. Vikings went and got Will Freeze, Ryan Kelly, and drafted Donovan Jackson. And of course, the Commanders, we went and got Deebo Samuel, Laremy Tunsil, and then drafted Josh Conerly. Everybody that took a quarterback in the first round last year is like, all right, pure offense, free agency, draft, let's get offense. And then also shouts out to Jake Russell for this one. Look at this, man. Look at what we acquired and re-signed, man. We are not playing not only about just the offensive line, but the trenches in general. Do not be surprised if we go pass rusher with our very next pick. I hope it's Nick Scourton, or I'm praying it's Donovan Ezeraku or Mike Green, but don't be surprised if it's an edge rusher or something like that, especially somewhere in the trenches, because Adam Peters sees, especially with the Eagles, what the Eagles got going on with all of my Georgia dogs over there, you gotta win in the trenches to have any chance to try to go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl right now. You gotta go through the Eagles right now. They are the standard. It sucks to admit it, and as annoying as their fans are, the Eagles are the standard. You gotta win in the trenches, and you can see just from this offseason alone how much we've prioritized the trenches. I feel like Eddie Goldman is a very underrated signing, because now we have a true zero-tech nose tackle that can eat up double teams. He's gonna immediately make us a far better run stopper, and I think people are really sleep on Javon Kinlaw. I think we added a lot of great people. Dietrich Wise was a starting edge rusher for the Patriots last year. He's going to be a part of a rotation. Look at all of these guys that we added, and of course we re-signed some guys as well, but this is insane what we're doing in the trenches right now. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if everything discussed in the video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinion video just like this one. Sorry, I'm reading this like an auctioneer, or I see some of y'all saying in the comment section I sound like Bone Thugs and Harmony sometimes. I just be trying to get through it real quick, man. Y'all already know the spill. Make sure you leave a like on the way out. And of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in this video. How do you feel about my remaining big board for the draft tonight? How do you feel about Josh Conerly and Adam Peters? How they feel about the draft pick? How do you feel about how creative Cliff Kingsbury is going to get with Josh Conerly and how much he loves him? And that, I mean, him and Jaden Daniels are probably the happiest people on the team right now. I feel sorry for Joey Jr. like Adam Peters joked, but maybe we'll go ahead and get him an elite edge rusher this in just a few hours. So I'm really excited about that. Again, make sure you pull up, because I will be on the live stream on the Commanders Kings channel with the Commanders Kings, Louis T, Rio Robinson, Ed Oliver, me, all of us. We're going to be diving into the draft, reacting to every pick, and hoping that the Commanders get a great player. Make sure you pull up for that. Again, make sure you leave a like on the way out. Appreciate y'all. Catch y'all later. I'm out.